Samwell was in love with the joy of music early on. After working in the music industry as an adult, she found her soul depleted. She gathered her courage and left. Today, she's fully returned to the joy of experiencing music on her own terms and delivers sound frequency experiences tailored for all of us to heal.
Hi, I am Katy Samwell. I'm a sound healer and intuitive musician.
And I can hear it in your voice. I can hear the tone just as you say that, Katie. You're so talented. But tell us a little bit about your childhood and the importance of music and frequency even back then.
I was just obsessed with music when I was young, especially my parents loved music and they would play. They had all the old Tamla Motown 45s, so they would play, Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, Gladys Knight and the Pips, and I just remember singing along to those with my hairbrush and just feeling so good because they were just they're just such it's such powerful music, powerful vocalists. And, I had no idea as a child what it was doing. But, now I know how much joy it was bringing me, how much emotion it was moving even back then when I was a child. Um, and I used to have a little keyboard that I would play. And, as a child, you experimented so much more. It was kind of music was just such a joyful expression and playtime, So, and I guess we sometimes forget that when we're an adult.
Well, it seemed to get sort of blackened out when you were in the traditional music industry, which often sounds so glamorous and glossy, but when you get up close, can you talk about being in that industry, what that did sort of for your soul and your spirit and where you went from there?
Yeah. So when I was sort of I guess around 17, 18, I had my own bands and I was, doing lots of live performances with music and absolutely loving it. And then I was also writing and singing with producers. I was doing a lot of dance music because my vocal style was very kind of soulful. And at that time, dance music was looking for soul vocalists. And so I was loving it and having a great time. I was working in a bank on the side, and then I joined the music. Lots of things happened, but long story short, I started working in the music industry when I was, I guess, in my mid to late 20s, and the idea was, oh, I can get a job in the music industry. That's really going to help me with my music. So that was my thinking. This is going to be great. But yeah, it didn't quite work like that because first of all, within the music industry, it's corporate, so it's not, and there's targets to meet. There's, these albums have to come out at this certain time. This artist needs to do this, so it's continual do with extreme high pressure because you're working with very very big artists, but it's also within these big record labels. So, and then what comes with that is what my soul was feeling within that was there wasn't really it didn't feel like there was much care for artists, care for their creative process. It became, in the early days, there was definitely a lot of care. But what happened, and I think especially with streaming, was this: we need music now, now, content. So it just became this sort of just stream. I mean, a stream of song after song after song, and the pressure that came with that, it just diluted what artist creativity. And I was seeing so many artists who were just really feeling that, that their journey of they couldn't take time to create their music. Suddenly it was just like, we need it now, we need this now, create more. And so it was, the way that the industry rolled, the record labels had to catch up with that because of the streaming, just kind of took off. The record labels had to catch up. So this kind of the way that music was made felt to me and to many artists that I was working with that they just weren't able to fully express themselves and to create in the way that they wanted to create. And and then of course you have the other side of it, which is dressing artists a certain way, and so it has a like all industries can have, it has a side that felt dark. So I just felt my soul getting kind of smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And in the end, I just kind of lost my own creative ability. Because I wasn't making my own music anymore, I was sort of constantly in this whirlwind of trying to get everybody else's music out there in the timely manner. But and there was lots of, I won't go into the real, there was lots that went on that suppressed my voice within the music industry, me as an individual, because like a lot of industries, it's predominantly male dominated. So, and obviously not everybody is like this, but there was some of that. So and I noticed myself, the behaviors that I was doing to try and just keep going, like drinking alcohol, numbing, that kind of thing. So then I got sick. So it just became this sort of kind of like whirlwind spiral. And I wasn't tuning into my soul anymore. I was just doing. So there was no being left in me. It was like doing, 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 doing. So which takes its toll on anybody after a while. And it got to a point when I knew that I just couldn't do that anymore. Something had to change. And the only thing for me to do was what I felt was to leave. I had nothing left in me to give that industry anymore.
So after you'd been sucked dry by the industry, it's not always an easy switch, right? I mean, for me, I just got booted out. I got fired from the big talent agency after I confronted my boss for sexually harassing me. And I went out on my own to create my own deals, matching celebrities to brands. What did you do? Because it's not easy, right? You're going to all these events and parties and hobnobbing with names that everybody knows, and you think you're living this is it. This is me, only to see your light becoming more dim and more black and more black. But then the idea of recreating yourself out on the street is not so much fun either. So what was that transition for you once you woke up to the fact of this is killing me? I can't do this anymore.
Well, alongside, I would say for the last probably 15 years, maybe even more than that, I was doing so much self work. I was going, every book I could possibly read, every self help, video I could watch, because I knew that there was something else inside me. I knew I wanted to help people, but not in the way that I was helping people within the industry. So I was trying to find what I wanted to do. So, I took a yoga teacher course, I did a personal trainer course, and then I discovered cranial sacral therapy through having it, and through to an old shoulder injury, and it really helped. So I studied cranial sacral therapy, and I actually became an integrative health coach too. So I thought, well, that's what I will do. I'll help people on a sort of nutritional level, on a holistic level, and do cranial sacral. And so, I decided that. And so when I was thinking about leaving, that was what I was going to do. But then, 2020, when I did leave, this was what I'd been thinking about it, right? So 2019, COVID hit. So it was kind of like, okay, so cranial sacral therapy is not going to work. So, but during that time, I rediscovered sound for myself. Yes, I did some sound healing whilst I was doing this, my own journey, my own inward journey. And I had one bowl at that point, and I remember just playing that bowl for a little while, and then I bought another bowl just before I left. And that bowl, really interestingly, played great when I when I bought it from our friend, mutual friend Geraldine, it was beautiful. When I got it home and started playing it, it just didn't sound right. And so I didn't know what was going on. When I quit my job, the day after, and I started playing it, it came back to life. So these, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but these bowls, they feed off us. But anyway, back to the transition. So because I'd started playing around with sound, I was like, well, maybe there's, and I was working with my voice again. I'd started to, by playing around with this bowl, it brought my own voice back. When I left, I knew that I had these modalities that I could help people with. And it was a huge case of just jumping off the cliff and going, I have no idea how this is going to work out, but I can't go backwards. I have to go forward. I can't stay where I am. I can't go back. I've got to go forward. So it was just a massive surrender, not an easy one at all. But at least I knew that I wanted to help people in some way. So that was the driver. There was the driver there. And I think with that intention, when you put the sort of intention of being of service out there, the universe does, start bringing you in little things here and there. If you can completely surrender, more things come in. But, it was initially bumpy, but I wouldn't change it for anything. But yes, it was like, here I go. I have no idea what's going to happen.
And I mean, it's been 5 solid years now, maybe a little
Yes.
more. Yeah, five,
Yeah.
6. How are people, your clients, people that are coming to hear you play, people that are ordering your music online, how is their experience of it and your experience producing it? How is that evolving as we've evolved as a collective, certainly after the debacle in 2020?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because so what happened to me during that time, and I think it was probably early 2021. So I actually left in August 2020, and I think early 2021, a friend of mine said, I just want to hear you play some bowls, because I was doing sort of not talk therapy sessions, but I mean, they were therapy around, health and well-being. And she said, I just want to hear you play the bowls and sing. And I was like, okay. And so I did. And she kept doing these regular sessions, which I was really enjoying. And then on the third session, a voice came out of me that was deep and sounded like multiple voices and was, quite a shock. And then when I looked at my friend on the screen, she was completely out. I was like, okay, so she's not freaked out. I am. But so I don't know what this is. So I'll just go with it. And then I just kind of opened myself up, and these sounds came through. And how that developed through time was what was happening was I was allowing myself to open up as a vessel, and just for whoever I was working with, bring through what sounds that they needed to hear. And songs would come through too, like songs, and I have no idea why the songs were in my head, but then I would just, sing a little bit of the song because I'd learned to just do that. And people would say, oh my God, that song's from my childhood, that brought back a memory. So I think for me, it was, I opened I was able to open up to different frequencies coming through to help those who I was working with. And then so creating, now I create that music not just on a live session. I will sit down and intuit into somebody and then create a piece of music for them, a sound remedy, I call it, a healing remedy. And so how that has evolved, I think, because more people now are so open. When I was first doing that, I was a little like, okay, these voices are coming through. I mean, it's channeling, and there was a stigma around channeling. So saying those words were quite difficult. But now there are so many more people open to frequency and vibration and feeling. And so with sound, you really feel it. that the mind is out of the way. So I've been able to be much more open and and be able to receive the response that I get from people because they're way more open, which is beautiful. Like so much there is so much more openness around sound now, frequency and vibration, which is wonderful.
No, some of us don't even understand to the degree that frequency and vibration really do have an effect on our being and at a soul level. Have you ever had somebody that just doesn't get it?
I haven't actually. I have not with sound. I did with cranial sacral once, and cranial sacral, because it's very, very light touch, and again, that's an energy and frequency, and just one person was like, I don't feel anything, which is fine. But no, not with the sound. I haven't had because I think it's able to bypass the mind, and anything that can bypass the mind and get directly into the body where we feel it it's a whole different because the mind's not going, "Oh, what is this that I'm letting in?" The body's just absorbing it, and the mind is just quiet. So I think yeah, I think that's why.
So 432 hertz, 528 hertz, these are kind of typical um, levels of sound that have a profound effect on human beings. But I read at some point the 432 was sort of fiddled around with. They dropped it down or something. It could be conspiracy theory, but apparently the Foundation had something to do with this. Do you know about that specifically?
I do, yes. So it was modern music or music was changed from 432 frequency, which is the frequency of Earth, frequency we resonate at, a frequency we recognize, and it was changed to 440. I did not know it was the Rockefellers. That's new information. But it probably was done for nefarious reasons. But what I love is it totally backfired because if you there's so much talk around this frequency and listen to this frequency and this frequency does that and that's all valid. But when you think about so when I think about the music and the voices that inspire me, lift me, I think of Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, George Michael, Freddie Mercury, Al Green. Those voices, they're all in 440. Frank Sinatra, another one. All that music is in 440. So the way that they create their music, the way that they sing, it's coming from their heart. So it's a high, high, high vibration. I mean, it's the highest vibration of unconditional, undiluted love that they're putting out on their creativity. And then we receive it at that level. The emotions that we, from a song that can just, make us sob our heart out and clear some emotion, clear some blocked emotion, or joy from dancing and singing to us along with a song. It's so that puts us in the high vibration. So they might have fiddled around with it, but it didn't work because ultimately the power of the human, the power of our intention and our heart and our love is it no other lower things can't touch us when we're up there. So I firmly believe that it was a big old backfire and just showed how powerful humans are.
I have to ask you, you've been out of that sort of darker, lower vibrational frequency for quite a while. What's the difference today when you get a sniff of that? You might be in some setting and it comes back, or you go to an event and you think it's going to be a certain way, but you experience it totally in a different way, feeling, uncomfortable energies after this awakening and this pivotal soul transformation that you've been through, obviously. So, do you experience that? And if so, what do you do when that happens?
Well, interestingly, I don't. Other than, sometimes things will come back in where when I'm putting out my own music and then I have to deal with, the Spotify platform or the Apple platform, and, it's back into, I can get pulled into this is so, ugh. It's so like old fashioned. We should have a new way of doing this. But it, most of the time, because I'm coming in at a whole other level, like I'm trying to keep myself in these, in the frequency of gratitude, compassion, love, joy, peace. I mean, peace. Often we can't get to joy, but peace, just being in those frequencies, so that I find that this other stuff doesn't come in. Even if I'm looking at social media, I don't see any of the negative. I just see, like good news stories or cat videos or things that I love, because our frequency can basically train the algorithm. It's like if we are putting out and we are feeling these higher vibrations, then that's what we see back. So I think, and that's taken some work. That didn't instantly happen, but I remind myself that everything that I went through within that. I now work. I also work for Golden World Music, which is Lee Harris's conscious music label, and we are, building that into bringing in artists creating conscious music. So we're doing things a different way. So all of that dark stuff that I went through, that was all part of me being able to move through that, know that that's not the way we should be doing things. We're moving more to a, if we're going to call it the fifth dimension or whatever, but we're moving to higher frequencies. So if we don't experience those low ones, we kind of, well, I feel like it's difficult to get out of them if you don't experience them, and especially don't go there and realize that that's not where you want to be. It's so much easier to feel those higher frequencies. So yeah, I don't remember anything recently where actually I did walk into a coffee shop, and the music they were playing, it just didn't feel. I was like, oh, I don't like that, so I just left. I went to another coffee shop. So it's just placing yourself in a different environment, I think, or placing yourself in a different frequency. So yeah.
You're doing such beautiful work, and people are so lucky to engage with you. And your website is exquisite, where we're going to send everybody.
Thank you.
Um, but I do need to ask you, are you at all surprised? I mean, you have two albums under your belt, I think, maybe more, maybe I'm missing something. And where do you want to go from here? Do you want to continue creating more music and putting it out? Or, what is your vision at this point? Because now you've been deep in this experience that so many would only dream of.
Oh, thank you. Yes, two albums and then two singles that were separate from those albums. Um, and then lots and lots of music that sits on my website as well. Um, yeah, one of my passions is creating music for other people to help them heal. So yes, creating my own music to put out there in the world. Definitely, I mean, medicine songs too. I'm working on right now, but doing personal sound remedies for people, or for their businesses. Giving them music that will help, um, be at the frequency that they want to put out for their businesses. So I love that because I get to create music, but I get to bring in all of these sound healing elements with it to help the person that I'm working with. So yes, and also I'm going to keep on creating music as long as I can, because I really really love it. Yeah, and I feel lucky to have found it again, because my I wanted to make an album when I was 18, and I made the first album when I was 50. And thank goodness, if I'd made that album at 18, it would not, I don't think I would have been where I am now. It would have been a very different scenario, shall we say.
Well, I hope everyone checks you out. Where do they come to see the bulk of you?
So katysamwell.com, and also YouTube. I've got lots of free videos up on YouTube. So, and that's just Katy Samwell.
I have to say, stand out. There's so many frequency, vibration, sound options when you go to YouTube, but there's something so pristine and so genuine from your heart that so breathes. Like I feel you're put on this planet to do exactly what you're doing now. And I hope, listeners will check you out and find you, because it's kind of hard to ferret through and discern, the good from the goopy.
Oh, well, thank you, Susan. That really touched my heart. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just put it out with the intention that those who need it will find it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, we're going to give them a kick in the pants here. Thanks for being
And I
on
love
today.
that. A golden kick in the pants. I love that.